Hello and welcome to you all here in the Nordic House, and also those of you who are with us on the live stream. My name is Katrin Pedersen. I'm a Faroese journalist and I will be your host today. Today we will announce the 6 initiatives nominated for the Nordic Council Environment Prize. The unveiling will be followed by a seminar on nature-based solutions, which is the theme of the prize this year. The 6 initiatives come from 6 Nordic countries. This event is live streamed to all of the Nordic countries, and therefore the language here today will be English. About the Nordic Council Environment Prize. 2 years ago, the winner was Faroese, Jens Kjell Jensen of the Faroe Islands. He was awarded for describing and highlighting the biodiversity of the Faroes for over 40 years. Last year, the winner was the Danish think tank Coincide for making a database describing 500 common kind of food and calculating their carbon footprint. Every year, the prize has a different theme within the main focus to raise awareness of the importance of environmental work taking place in the Nordic region. Unlike the other Nordic Council prizes, the Environment Prize has an open call for nominations, which means that anyone can suggest an initiative they consider worthy of the prize. The official nominees are then picked out by a Nordic jury of 13 experts, and we'll find out who they selected this year as the final winner on November 1st, when the award ceremony takes place in Finland. The winner will receive 300,000 Danish kroners and, of course, the honor. About the theme this year. This year's theme for the prize is nature-based solutions. But what are nature-based solutions and why do they matter? Essentially, they are solutions that seek to solve some of the greatest challenges faced by humanity today, such as climate change and biodiversity loss, by seeking inspiration from nature itself. Nature is our most powerful ally when facing these challenges. So there's a lot to gain by making it a priority. But more about that later during the seminar, when a great group of experts and policymakers will dive into the subject. Now, for the nomination of the Nordic Council Environment Prize, we are happy to invite Magnus Rasmussen to the scene. He is the Faroese Minister for Environment and Trade, and he will disclose the 6 nominees from 6 Nordic countries. Please welcome Magnus to the stage.
Very warm greetings to the distinguished nominees for the Nordic Council Environment Prize 2022 and to the participants and audience joining us live here in Nordic House in Tórshavn and online throughout the Nordic region. This is indeed a thrilling event where the nominees for this year's Nordic Environment Prize will be revealed. I would like to thank the Nordic Council for granting me the honor to present the nominees and for the opportunity to say a few words in my welcome address. I am very grateful that we have so many visionary people, visionary politicians and visionary scientists in Nordic countries who believe in close collaboration and who are able to work together across country and institutional borders. If we didn't have this Nordic collaboration, would we still share the same values and share for the environment? Would we work together to find solutions for immense environmental challenges of our time? Would we have any Nordic Environmental Prize? I strongly believe in collaboration and cooperation, whether it is in small scale or big scale, whether it is professional or voluntary, based on profit or non-profit, and whether it is founded within an organization, a country, or internationally. I am convinced that we can't combat the most significant environmental challenges of our time if we don't work together. Climate change, degradation of biodiversity, deforestation and worldwide pollution must be acknowledged and addressed. I believe it is paramount to work together across all kinds of borders in the pursuit of a cleaner and more sustainable environment. I believe in knowledge sharing and cooperation, even if the challenges may differ from country to country. I also believe in leading by example, and thus I see the Nordic collaboration as a vital steering wheel that takes us all forward. Hence, this leads us to the essence of this event. It all starts with visionary individuals, visionary communities, and visionary organizations that have an ambition that reaches far beyond the single individual and simple personal gains. In a few moments, I will announce the names of the nominees for the 2022 Environmental Prize. And what do the nominees have in common? They all excel in their visionary and bold endeavor to combat the life-threatening degradation of our ecosystems by embarking on new and game-changing initiatives. They pursue sustainable solutions to the grave environmental challenges of our time. They have shown how nature-based solutions may contribute to environmental progress locally with the potential of being part of global solutions. Consequently, the nominees truly inspire us to continue the Nordic collaboration by working together. They show us that there is not only one way forward, but many ways forward to combat the most significant environmental challenges of our times. So let me conclude this welcome address by congratulating all nominees. Your outstanding work and effort will serve as an inspiration to the Nordic mission to continuously work together to explore ways forward to a more sustainable society on a local, regionally, and international scale. Now it's time for the nomination. First up, we have the Swedish candidate. The nomination goes to Kristianstad Vattenrike Biosphere Reserve.
And I can tell you that Kristianstad Vattenrike sorry, please give them a hand. Kristianstad Vattenrike Biosphere Reserve is a UNESCO biosphere reserve serving as a model area for sustainable development. Kristianstad's Vattenrike covers almost the entire municipality of Kristianstad. Here, work with nature-based solutions and wetland ecosystem services has long been central to reducing problems with flooding, drought, and eutrophication in the sea. Vattenrike has worked in close collaboration with researchers to create new wetlands in the agricultural landscape and highlight the ecosystem services that wetlands provide. And through this work, they have increased knowledge and understanding of nature-based solutions. This is why they are nominated for the Nordic Council Environment Prize this year.
And nominee number 2. Now we move on to our neighbor, Iceland. The nomination goes to the Icelandic Wetland Fund.
The Icelandic Wetland Fund is nominated for funding at the reclamation of wetlands and contributing to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in Iceland. It is estimated that up to 2/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions in Iceland are from drained wetlands. Therefore, it's essential to start the reclamation of wetlands as soon as possible. The Icelandic Wetland Fund makes the change possible by providing landowners and farmers with the right resources. This is why it is nominated for the Nordic Council Environment Prize this year.
And nominee 3. Next up is the Danish candidate. The nomination goes to Sundvælefjord.
Sundvælefjord is nominated for kickstarting marine ecosystems by restoring lost eelgrass beds, mussel banks, and stone reefs in Vælefjord. Sundvælefjord, this innovative use of eelgrass shoots to bind CO2, nitrogen, and other nutrients has restored a previously endangered ecosystem. The project has mobilized both stakeholders and enthusiasts, who together make it the largest and most ambitious nature restoration project at sea in Danish history. This is why it is nominated for the Nordic Council Environment Prize this year.
And the nominee 4, and now the candidate from Greenland. The nomination goes to Louise Lunge.
Louise Lunge is nominated for addressing the climate changes that are seen and felt in Greenland through indigenous design and a zero CO2 business strategy. Louise Lunge sets an example for other Greenlandic companies by creating locally produced clothing made with organic and recycled materials. A commendable effort towards lowering the fashion industry's high CO2 footprint. This is why they are nominated for the Nordic Council Environment Prize this year.
Nominee 5, next up is the Finnish candidate. The nomination goes to Finnish Society for Stream Conservation, Faroe.
The Finnish Society for Stream Conservation, Virho, I think it's pronounced, is a volunteer-based NGO restoring the ecosystems of countless streams and creeks in Finland. Over the years, thousands of volunteers have participated in the projects of Virho and restored hundreds of kilometers of rivers and streams throughout Finland. Virho advocates for biodiversity not only through restoration but also through education, offering various activities where the public can learn more about aquatic ecosystems and their importance. This is why they are nominated for the Nordic Council Environment Prize this year.
And in nominee 6, last but not least, we have the Åland, Iceland. The nomination goes to City of Mariehamn, Nappens Multifunctional Wetland.
The city of Mariehamn, Nappens Multifunctional Wetland, is a multifunctional wetland that improves water quality, increases biodiversity, and provides a space for education and recreation. Nappens Wetland was created by the city of Mariehamn in 2020 and has multiple functions. It improves water quality, filters out microplastics, and provides habitat for a diverse range of birds and amphibians. In addition to this, the area also provides a place for recreation and an educational space where children and adults can learn about biodiversity. This is why it is nominated for the Nordic Council Environment Prize this year. Now, no doubt that all 6 nominees deserve honor and applause. Should we give them all a hand? And also thank to you, Magnus Rasmussen, for announcing the nominees. Now it's up to the jury to decide which of the 6 candidates will receive the prize in Finland in November, 1st of November this year. But here in the Nordic House in Tórshavn, we will now explore the theme of the year's prize. First, we will welcome from Iceland, Mirja Leifsdóttir from the Institute of Sustainability Studies, and Silja Elvarsdóttir, who is head of Secretariat of the Nordic Council Environment Prize. And they are welcome to the stage to say a few words about previous seminars that they have hosted in Iceland on the subject of nature-based solutions. Cheers, well.
We had a slide with some pictures from our previous event, but I think we will do without it.
Yeah, it's fine.
My name is Mira Leifsdóttir, and I work at the Institute for Sustainability Studies at the University of Iceland. I am happy to be here in the very beautiful Faroe Islands today. The Institute for Sustainability Studies is an interdisciplinary institute, which, in addition to conducting sustainability research and providing consultation, specializes in communication and mediation of sustainability-related issues, and serves as a platform which facilitates dialogues between academia, government bodies, NGOs, and the private sector. We have been collaborating with the Nordic House in Iceland on quite a few occasions. And currently we are hosting the event series In Line with the Nature-Based Solutions and Their Effects in a Wider Context, which this seminar is also a part of. As we know, this year, the theme for the Environment Prize is nature-based solutions, and therefore we want to use the opportunity to introduce these concepts to the public, and at the same time bring together different people to discuss and explore the potentials of nature-based solutions. In the previous events, we have hosted seminars where we have provided a wide range of angles of the topic from different sectors and disciplines, and facilitated dialogues in panel discussions like this one that we are waiting for now, with the aim to build bridges between different sectors and inspire more collaboration. We have brought together people from architecture, psychology, microbiology, conservation, the health sector, drama, investment, and the government, only to name a few. And we have had fruitful conversations, laughter, and debates, and hopefully sparked new ideas for collaboration, as well as new perspectives on the topic. And I'll give you the word, Silja.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Silja, and I'm the head of the Secretariat for the Nordic Council Environment Prize, a very long title. I'm also very excited to be here in the Faroe Islands with you today to introduce the prize and our phenomenal nominees this year, both to the Faroese public and also viewers online. As Mira said, we have had fruitful conversations in these previous seminars, which has given us new insights into the solutions that nature can provide when we team up with it and recognize its incredible potential. When you investigate the impacts of nature-based solutions in a wider sense, it becomes evident that human health and the health of nature goes hand in hand. We also learned that collaboration between a wide range of actors is key. A lot of talk about collaboration here. When it comes to the implementation of nature-based solutions, just as an ecosystem must also include diversity and a broad range of actors to thrive. I'm looking forward to listening to the coming seminar, as Mira mentions, I hope that will bring us a deeper understanding of the collaboration between disciplines, but not also between the disciplines, but also the Nordic countries, and that it will shed light on the existing projects that are being realized here in the Faroe Islands and also in the Nordics. So yeah, thank you all for being here today.
Thank you so much, Mira and Silja. With us now is Jóna Ólafsdóttir. She is the coordinator for the Nordic Council of Ministers program on nature-based solutions. And Jóna will tell us about the core elements of the concept of nature-based solutions and of this particular program. Kjør vel.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Jóna Ólafsdóttir, and as Catherine said, I am coordinating this program on nature-based solutions in the Nordic region. And we are waiting for this. Thank you. Yeah, it's a Nordic Council of Ministers program that runs from 21 to 24. But before we talk about solutions, we have to know what are the challenges that we are looking for solutions for. We can ask ourselves, how do we ensure sustainable development when we know that the population of this world is increasing by many thousand people a day? Also, we know that we need to mitigate climate change. We should stay below 2 degrees, as mentioned in the Paris Convention. We also need to protect biodiversity. We know that several species extinct every single day. And also, we need to know, how do we increase human well-being? Because in our part of the world, unfortunately, a lot of people suffer from poor human well-being. And research shows that nature can be a solution to that problem. The more nature we have close to people increases our mental well-being. Nature-based solutions actually work with all of these challenges, as mentioned before. And basically, we can say that nature-based solutions are solutions where we work with the tools that nature already has, in contrast to gray solutions, which are more technical solutions to the same challenges. And researchers believe that nature-based solutions could be the solution to 1/3 of the greenhouse gas reduction needed to stop global warming exceeding the 2 degrees described in the Paris Convention. We have chosen to stick to IUCN's definition on nature-based solution, and we have chosen to do so because we want to ensure that we do not support greenwashing or, for example, climate measures that have a negative impact on, for example, biodiversity. And for those who might not know it, IUCN is the International Unit for Conservation of Nature. And the definition is here: actions to protect, sustainably manage and restore natural or modified ecosystems that address societal challenges effectively and adaptively, simultaneously providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. So now you know the definition of nature-based solutions, and you have heard a little bit about these exciting projects that now are nominated for the Nordic Environment Prize. But I will give you some examples of what nature-based solutions also can be, because it's a rather abstract concept that I myself took a long time to understand. So primarily we work with these 5 categories: water management, forest management, agriculture, urban areas, and coastal areas. We also work with different types of nature-based solutions, like large-scale and small-scale. And when we talk about large-scale nature-based solutions in mountainous areas, it can, for example, be afforestation or slope stabilization. And along river corridors, it's widening rivers. Along coastal areas, it can, for example, be sand dunes or protection walls, etc. And when we talk about small scale, we talk about resilient cities. And a typical example of small-scale nature-based solutions are green roofs that we know here from the Faroe Islands, green walls, and rain gardens, and, for example, permeable pavements. So this is the model picture from the Danish design studio Reynatúgvu. And it's a model picture from Norra Bunkeflo in Malmö, Sweden, that shows how to work with new relationships between nature and city. And hopefully, this can be a sustainable model for how to concretize the UN's SDGs and how to comply with the 2030 goals in the Paris Convention. For many years, we have worked against the rain. We have drained and drained our cities, and now we want to join the rain and see how we can incorporate it in, for example, construction and urban planning. This is my last example of what nature-based solutions can be. Here on the right, we have a gray solution. On the left, we have a nature-based solution. It's 2 different kinds of solutions to the same challenge. And Naturvårdsverket in Sweden, they have made this assessment that shows that, in generally, nature-based solutions are more expensive and take longer to establish, but in return they are much cheaper to maintain, and the footprint is smaller and the added value is much greater. And I can ask you, what kind of solutions would you prefer in your city? So a little more about the program. It's called Nature-Based Solutions in the Nordic Region. And the Nordic Council and the Nordic Council of Ministers has this vision 2030 that the Nordic region should be the most sustainable and integrated region in the world. And a part of that solution is this one program with 5 projects. And the Nordic Council of Ministers has allocated 26 million Danish kroner to this project. And the Nordic ecosystems are different, which gives a good variety in the program, but yet they are so similar that the ideas and the results can be used across the countries and hopefully also international in the future. The program is managed by a steering group and followed by a reference group. And the administration of the program is based here in the Faroe Islands, where the Faroese Environment Agency is the administrative body. The goals are briefly to identify gaps and areas for further development, to reduce climate emission, to improve climate mitigation and conserve or improve biological diversity, to strengthen the knowledge base, to promote the Nordic work, and to provide examples and guidance on mechanisms and techniques. And now I will show a video that briefly shows what the program is about.
We have always been inspired by nature's solutions when dealing with great challenges. But the approach to handle climate change is too often based on short-term solutions with heavy engineering. Nature can in fact help us with many of the challenges that climate change brings.
Nature-based solutions are inspired and supported by nature. They involve protecting, restoring, and managing ecosystems. We can use nature-based solutions in a manner that produces benefits for both biodiversity, climate, and welfare in the Nordic region.
The beauty of nature-based solutions is that while it helps us solve the problems at hand, such as biodiversity loss, greenhouse gas emissions, other areas benefit as a result. The Nordic region has already implemented nature-based solutions in various natural environments.
We need to see the bigger picture in order to learn from each other and scale up successful projects. We are funding a range of projects spanning from cataloging Nordic nature-based solutions to funding innovative pilot cases. We are also creating guidelines for national and regional implementation. We believe that by investing in this 4-year program, we will improve our toolkit to help make the Nordic region the most sustainable region in the world by 2030.
Yes. And if we dig a little further into these 5 projects, I can tell you that the first project is a synthesis that NIVA is writing right now. They're about to finish it. They are mapping nature-based solutions in the Nordic region. How far have we come? What knowledge gaps are there? And you can visit nordicsituation.com for further information about that project. The second project is national pilot projects from across the Nordic countries. And we have chosen to fund 8 different pilot projects with between 600,000 and 900,000 Danish kroner. We got 28 applications for these pilot projects, which shows great interest in the subject here in the Nordic countries. The third project is policy development, where the aim is to make it easy for politicians at national level to implement nature-based solutions. It's guidance on following laws and political agreements, for example, the Paris Agreement. The fourth project is best practice, which is a guide for the implementation of nature-based solutions and on knowledge from the pilot projects. So what have we learned from the pilot projects? What should we do and what should we not do? And the fifth project is a CVR, crop wild relative project from that Norwegian is coordinating. It's on conservation and documentation of Nordic genetic resources with focus on wild relatives of cultivated plants. And the third and the fourth project are out for tendering early next year. And about those 8 pilot projects, I can tell you that in Åland, 4 multifunctional wetlands are being prepared to increase biodiversity. In Denmark, Assens Kommune is working on a strategic planning for multifunctional land distribution to establish new forest areas and wetlands as a part of landscape planning. Another project in Denmark works to reduce garden waste by introducing brush fences and documenting their effects. And here in the Faroe Islands, students and farmers are working together with Tjóðsauna on the first project to restore an area after a landslide. And Kolbrún will tell us more about that afterwards. In Reykjavik, we have another crop wild relative project. They are working on a project that is about providing plant breeders with a genetic toolbox that helps them in their work towards an even more urbanized and sustainable agriculture for local food supply. In Norway, they are working on a project with a nature-based solution to strengthen stream banks. In Finland, I won't pronounce that, but we call them Metsä. They're working on a project to restore watercourses and forest and peat areas around the watercourses. And last but not least, in Sweden, a prototype of a flooding system for wetlands is being created to remove excess phosphorus in the Stockholm archipelago. And before we end, I want to tell you that right now we are working on establishing the Network Nature Nordic Hub, which is the Nordic hub for the international network called Network Nature that is based in Brussels, in Belgium. And it's a network of organizations, associations, companies, researchers, professionals, and others who work with nature-based solutions across the world. And you can read more on networknature.eu and visit our Nordic Hub site. And the 13th of October, we will have our launching event in Copenhagen. And if you want to join us, you can register it by emailing me. And now you know what to do. Follow us on social media and subscribe for newsletter. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to contact me afterwards. But now I will give the floor to experts and decision makers that will talk about how we use nature-based solutions in the Nordic region and how we also can use this in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jonna, for this introduction and for telling us about your exciting work. We have invited a panel of very relevant people engaged in nature and environmental challenges, each with a different point of view. Please take a seat, members of the panel, while I present you. We've made some slides to present each one of you. With us from Norway, on the screen and in the air, is Leonard Sandin. Can you hear us, Leonard? Yes, you're there. I can see you. Leonard is
I'm here, thanks.
Hi. Leonard is a freshwater ecologist at the Norwegian Institute for Water Research. He has 20 years of experience in freshwater management, monitoring, and restoration. He's currently leading 2 Nordic Council of Ministers funded projects on nature-based solutions. He's also the work package leader for the Norwegian Research Council funded project called SABICAS, is that correct? Which stands for Safeguard Biodiversity and Improve Climate Adaptation in Catchment Areas Under Pressure. Tools and solutions. They're focusing on improvement of the riparian zone on a catchment scale. That was Leonard. Welcome. And right next to Leonard, we have Andrea Wang. Andrea Vang is a BSc in physics from the University of Manchester and is in the second year of making a Master of Science in Climate Change at the University of Copenhagen. Andrea joined the Nordic Youth Biodiversity Network in January this year, as they were lacking representation from the Faroe Islands. Glad you could step in. She has mainly worked with the communication and social media part of this network. Andrea is passionate about nature-based solutions and see the nature crisis as the largest challenge we are facing in the 21st century. Welcome, Andrea. Right beside me, on my out to the left, we have Kolbrún in Haraldsstovu. Kolbrún has a BSc in ecological biology from the University of the Faroe Islands, and she's Master of Science in Environmental Science from Copenhagen University and Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences. Kolbrún is the head of Department of Botany at the Faroe Islands National Museum. She coordinates the first large nature restorations initiative in the Faroe Islands, called Lendisbati. Land Aid, it's said in English. And she's responsible for the botanical investigations for the Culture Nature Reserve project. And the last line says, you have performed studies of the interplay between humans and nature and consultations about nature. Welcome, Kolbrún. Next to Andrea, we have Hafdís Hanna Ægisdóttir. Hafdís Hanna is a biologist from the University of Iceland and plant ecologist, a PhD, from the University of Basel in Switzerland. Hafdís is also the director of the UNU Land Restoration Training Program, where they work with skill and leadership training for specialists from developing countries on land restoration and sustainable land management. Her current role is director at the Institute for Sustainability Studies and the University of Iceland. There were a lot of S's. Hafdís is passionate about making our planet healthier and our societies fairer and safer through equality, exceptional leadership and collaboration across countries, continents and cultures. Welcome, Hafdís. And finally, we have Páll Reynatúgvu. He is an MP from Løgtinga, from the Faroe Islands. He has been a politician for 25 years. He is the former speaker of the parliament. He's been a minister and a mayor. He's also been the chairperson of SEV, which is the electrical company of the Faroe Islands. He is from the Independence Party, Tjóðveldi, and he is educated as a physiotherapist originally. He's also a hobby sheep farmer, as you can see from the picture. And he's trying to develop a private solar park here on the island. And as a person, he says, I guess it's a comment on the current situation, which is so serious that you're an optimist. Yes. We're glad to have an optimist on board. Welcome. I agree with Jona, who said that this can be a bit abstract, this subject, and therefore we also will try to get as many examples and explanations into the discussion as we can, so that it's easy for people to understand what kind of projects are we talking about, what kind of problems, and what kind of solutions are we talking about. I think we will start with the researchers. Maybe I could start with you. What would be your favorite example of a nature-based solution?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. You know, there are so many good examples of nature-based solutions. I mean, we have, like we saw in the talk earlier, like we had land-based nature-based solutions like woodland restoration, or like in cities and towns with these blue-green solutions. And also we have exciting nature-based solutions in coastal and marine environment. But if I have to choose one, I would say wetland restoration. Why? Because it is very efficient way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Wetlands store a lot of carbon when they are intact. But when we drain them, like we did in Iceland, we have drained a lot of wetlands. We start, then the wetlands are dry, the oxygen comes in, and the microbes start working on all the organic material, and we have a lot of emission of greenhouse gases. But by restoring them again, we stop the fire, you can say. They stop emitting greenhouse gases. So that is why, but also because wetlands are such unique environments. By restoring them, the birds come back, like the wetlands birds. Wetlands are also good for purifying water, for helping with floods, like that. We don't have all these floods, so they take in water when we get floods. So they're just a unique environment. So that is my favorite, restoring them.
Kolbrún, what would be your favorite example? It is allowed to mention some of your own projects.
Well, I was in Iceland just in June, and I was with Iceland exploring a re-wetted wetland, and it was absolutely magnificent to see it, because you could see how the small rivers were returning naturally to the main river. And they had been mapping all the different flows from the mountain back to the river. So it was a beautiful process to see that it was actually happening something. Even though when you think about re-wetting wetlands, you may not see as visible results for a long time compared to maybe when you plant some seeds and you see a very visible results very fast. But I also really like the wetlands because we are still in the process in the Faroe Islands to see that process of re-wetting. We haven't come that far, unfortunately. We're still draining wetlands, almost unregulated. So I hope to see that process by myself, for myself here in the future as well.
But why are we draining wetlands if that is a bad thing to do?
Well, because of our land use, the management of our land use, I think we are.
It's for agricultural purposes, yes, and for building purposes.
Yeah, without thinking about the consequences. I don't think that many people are very aware of the consequences of drained wetlands in the Faroe Islands, unfortunately. We are a bit far behind when it comes to nature-based solutions.
We will get back to that point. Leonard, could you mention some of your favorite examples of a nature-based solution?
Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person. I'm Swedish, working in Norway. I used to work in Denmark, so I worked in the whole of Scandinavia. Maybe this isn't so, since both your examples were wetlands, and I'm a freshwater ecologist. My favorite project is the Skjernå project in Denmark. Maybe you heard of it. I think it's interesting because it's 15 years old about now, and in situation, the Nordic Council project, we had long discussions about nature-based solutions and projects that was started before the term was even coined, and how we think about that, and where we see those fitting into this nature-based solution narrative. But the Skjernå project is a really large catchment restoration project, river and wetland, remandering, restoring natural water level fluctuations, and also very important, I think, making it a recreational area for people to truly understand what happens when you let nature take over or come back again. Birds coming back, fisheries coming back, and also positively affecting the downstream fjord in the area, taking up nutrients and so on. So for me, that's a good example of what we can do together as a society.
Hafdís, I would like to turn back to you, and we'll try to explain this in even simpler terms. If you were asked to explain this concept, nature-based solutions, to someone who had never heard about it, and maybe even was younger than 12, okay, what would you say?
I would say nature-based solutions are solutions that are both good for the planet and the climate and for ourselves and other life on Earth, all life on Earth, plants and animals and other animals. So at the same time, so it's simultaneously. I guess I would, you can take many examples, good examples, but let's take, for example, rainwater management in urban settings, like in cities and towns. I would explain, to a younger person or even to a relative who's not really into this, that, we can take that as an example. I've been fascinated just by here in the Faroe Islands. I just came yesterday seeing all these roofs with grasses. We don't have so many of those in Iceland. Because, like, I would tell them about the difference between using these nature-based solutions in urban settings with managing the water, and even now we have more floods coming because of climate change, and how that, by having the green roofs and making ponds or wetlands in more green spaces in the cities and the towns, then we it's not only good for the water management, but it's also good for the life to come back into the cities. Studies have shown that we feel better, like our mental health is better compared to the gray structure, like building only of concrete. So yeah, I would try to make something, tell something like this.
Kolbrún, what would be a good sentence, in your opinion, to explain nature-based solutions?
Well, Jonna said it pretty well in her presentation, to use the tools that nature has applied through decades and decades to solve different kind of problems that we are also facing, to try and figure out how would nature approach this, and then work with nature instead of against it. And yeah, how do we adapt us to nature instead of try to work out our technical solutions first?
Mm-hmm. Jonna also had a very good word game, saying we used to want to drain the rain, but now we want to join the rain. Yeah. That could be maybe a good example and a good picture. Leonard, do you have any good explanation for children on this subject? What would that be?
I think it's quite clear that the nature-based solution concept is really human-centered. So my start will be the big societal problems we have, the biodiversity crisis, the climate crisis. How can we solve them? And we can't solve them by using gray or engineering solutions. We also need to do it in concert with them, with the help of nature.
Yeah. Andrea, in the introduction of you, we told people that you are part of the Nordic Youth Biodiversity Network. Could you tell us a bit about this network?
Yeah, so NIBN for short is a very long title, so we call it NIBN. We're actually a part of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, and that is the youth constituency of the UN United Nations Convention on Biodiversity. So we created this a sub-chapter, you can say, of the Global Youth Biodiversity Network. And it's a network created by youth and for youth. So it's just basically a network where young people can join, and they can do some capacity building, and they can learn about decision-making processes. And what we really want to do is to make sure that young people have a voice and are included in these decision-making processes. So yeah, that's what we do basically.
Mm-hmm. And are many young people engaged in the problems of losing biodiversity?
Yes, I think so. Well, at least the ones that are in Nordic Youth Biodiversity Network are all either students like myself studying something relevant and just very engaged in these issues. So yeah.
And what is how would you say that biodiversity and nature-based solutions are interacting or connected?
Well, I think almost all of the examples mentioned are solutions that are dependent on a healthy ecosystem. And I think the definition of a healthy ecosystem is when there is a lot of biodiversity. So the ecosystem, all of the parts of it work. For example, if you were to conserve a forest, you wanted to have also conserved biodiversity. And this is a nature-based solution to, for example, remove CO2 from the atmosphere or something like that.
Páll, you have been a politician for 25 years. If you were to explain nature-based solutions and why they are important to your colleagues, the other politicians, how would you go about it? How would you convince them that this is something they should be interested in?
Good to be here today together with all good Nordic people. And also good to be living in a grass roof house back home with wooden walls. I think if only it was as simple as we could say, let it be, then we would all be pretty happy and luckily taking care of nature. But of course, we're up against some heavy partners, if you might say. Yesterday, when I Googled why do people purchase or buy land, this is what Google said. Buying land gives various opportunities to generate cash. Even if you choose small plots of land, you can make a substantial amount of money. Land ownership gives you earning potential and opportunities to make money. You can either build a rental property on your land, raise cattle, grow vegetables, fruits, or crops. And I could add energy production as well. So this is at least in the Faroes, half of the Faroese land is private property, and all people, I would say, who own private property in the Faroe Islands, they do it for some kind of development, some kind of revenue. When you invest in land, you want some revenue back. So that's a challenge we're up against, because today it is a market-based solution where money makes the world go round. So we need to change the entire way of thinking about, can we somehow make nature some kind of market or some kind of investment? Today we subsidize farmers for cultivating the land, for growing, for everything. We subsidize in EU. It's a heavy subsidies for all farming reasons, but not any single place you can find any kind of subsidy or money back guarantee for preserving nature. So it is a very big and tough challenge we're up against.
Do we have examples from other Nordic countries where you have solutions or partly solutions to the problem that Páll is mentioning, that you don't get anything out of it if you just let the land be?
Yeah, for example, like the wetland issue in Iceland, the farmers it was subsidized to drain the wetlands. So that was the example of the nominee from Iceland now, is this wetland fund where you can, go back and restore the wetlands. I'm not sure. So I think you have to really. I don't know if there are many. I don't know about the other Nordic countries. If there are, I guess there are some good examples, but I think we need to look at nature and the ecosystem as a. They are amazing. There is so much value in them, and there is research that shows that it's much cheaper to preserve and restore nature instead of keeping on destroying it in the future, like both with the, it's better now to go and work with nature than doing nothing, and because then in 5, 10, 20 years, everything will be much, much more expensive. So I think we really need to take it into account that the economics of land degradation, land restoration, climate change and everything, that it's much cheaper if we think about the economics to do it now, both to mitigate and adapt to climate change by using, for example, nature-based solutions, compared to just waiting and thinking that it will just disappear, because it will not disappear, it will only be more expensive.
Páll?
Yeah, I do agree, and I think it's very good that we highlight these issues in a seminar like this one, because it's definitely the right way of thinking and moving forward, both for the Nordic region and for each country as well. But I think we need to address the main factor, which is the way we drive our economy today with development, and economic growth, and because at the same time it requires quite a lot of land everywhere. You know, 70 or 80% of all European people will live in cities within 20, 25 years from now on, and we need to find housing for 40 to 50 million people in that period. So we have to somehow develop systems that provide also some kind of profit from living a sustainable life.
Leonard, with your experience, do you have comments on this part of the subject? How do we get nature-based solutions to win in the race of all these problems that we are trying to solve and see ahead of us?
I think it's quite important to realize that there's a gradient from undisturbed nature. So, I mean, the cheapest solution is probably to conserve what is already or not yet disturbed, let's say. I mean, restoring something is more costly than protecting something that is already or still not affected by humans in a way. But nature-based solutions is everything from conserving, restoring, but also building something that more or less mimics nature. So instead of having gray solutions maybe in the city, as Jona showed in her pictures, we could have grass or trees or things like that that we plant and put there.
Kolbrún, you were mentioned earlier that in the Faroe Islands we are still kind of going in the wrong direction, drying up wetlands instead of restoring them. But you are the head of a project called Lendisbati. It's a restoration project, isn't it?
Yes, it is a part of the Faroese, or the National Museum of the Faroe Islands. We work to restore different kind of landscapes or habitats together with farmers and other specialists in different fields. We have been in dialogue with different landowners who are very eager to see their land becoming or getting restored. We are, however, having a bit of a bigger problem getting funded, thankfully, because funded for our first project, Lendisbati project, which is a landslide on Karlsøy. Jona showed the picture of it, where we are together with Iceland, the Soil Conservation Service of Iceland, going in to see how and which methods we can use and adapt to Faroese environment and restore that landslide in hopes that we can use the same or similar methods for other erosion-prone areas in the Faroe Islands, because we are seeing a huge amount of erosion, eroded areas throughout the islands, and with this harsher climate that we are predicting to get, we can imagine that this will become an even bigger problem. So that is why it's so important that we start focusing on how we can restore the already eroded areas, but also prevent for future erosion and increase the resilience of the landscapes. So that's one part of the project, but we also aim to go in and restore wetlands and restore biodiversity in heavily grazed areas and so on. Yes.
But you say it's a bit hard to raise the money needed.
Yes, well, in the Faroes, I think we will talk a bit about this later on maybe, but I've been trying to talk to different companies and try to get the funding from local private sectors, and it has been quite difficult to manage because everyone is open for the idea, but I don't think anyone is like really trusting the process, because we are still in this knowledge building process, trying to study as much as we can as we go, and in the same time trying to do something for the environment. So we're like working on parallel lines, because everywhere else they have been restoring different kind of landscapes for years and years, and we haven't done any of that. So we are trying to do everything at once, and we can't show, definite results right away. That's not how it works. We don't want to just do something and then hope for a good result. We want to do it properly now when we're so far behind. Mm-hmm. But
so it sounds like it is in the Faroe Islands, at least. It's a question about taking the issues from grassroots level and researcher level, and to make the public really interested and the politicians really interested.
Yeah, communicate nature issues in the Faroe Islands and raise awareness of the different kind of issues we are facing, and when it comes to threats to the natural environment is a crucial part of our project, because we're still in that state where I personally don't think that many Faroese people are aware of the vicinity of the problem.
This is a clue for you, isn't it? You know a bit about how to train leadership, leaders in this area, how to scale these things up and get this thing out in the public.
Yes. So, in my former role, I was a director of an international training program on sustainable land management and land restoration. It was then under the United Nations University. It's now under the auspices of UNESCO, called the Land Restoration Training Program in Iceland, where we train specialists from developing countries, mostly then from sub-Saharan African and Central Asian countries, in these issues, and that has taught us so much, because and the message, or what I learned from working there for 12 years as a director, was that we all have so much to share, all of us, from different countries. We had specialists, from Niger Republic or Lesotho or Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, all of these countries, and we were learning so much from them, coming from academia, from NGOs, from local governments. So we had something to share from Iceland, from our story, but we're also learning a lot from there. So it was not a knowledge transfer, it was not knowledge sharing. We were all sharing knowledge and experiences. And I think that is something that we can take as an example of just in general, also here in the Nordic countries, that if we learn from each other and we share our experiences and knowledge, we can use that as a way to go further. So it is the knowledge sharing. It's also, I think that because what was mentioned here earlier, for example, when the minister was speaking in his speech, the collaboration. So much, it's so important that we collaborate, and I believe so much in collaboration, because we cannot do it alone. We have to do, these are very complicated challenges that we are facing today in the world, and we cannot look at ourselves only as isolated islands or region. We can also think about, we have this planet. This is our only home in the galaxy. So we need to, protect it and restore it if we're gonna, keep on living here. So we need to take everybody on board. So if we are planning project, for example, then we need to take everybody on board, listen to, we have to listen to the scientists, of course. And that I think we learned from the COVID-19 pandemic, that those countries who really, listened to the scientists, they were doing better than the ones who were not listening to it. So listen to the science, but still take all stakeholders on board. Listen to different views and opinions, but then work with the stakeholders, work together. And I think that is something that we learned. I learned from my former role. Now I'm the director of the Institute for Sustainability Studies at the University of Iceland, and what I'm learning there is also this working with different sectors. Just like Mira and Silja were saying here in the introduction, like we are working with, how different disciplines need to work together, because it is all related. The climate change and biodiversity loss, and then how it affects our, human health, and it's all connected, and how different disciplines can work together. So, hope that answered the question. Very long answer.
But I was thinking about you mentioned different countries that we could learn from. But is there any special reason that the Nordic countries should group together and say we will make Nordic solutions?
Yeah, I think the Nordic countries have such a long history of working together. This Nordic collaboration, and so that is. I think we can, as a region, make a very good example of, that we have certain like Nordic values like equality, sustainability, human rights and compassion and all of that. And we can, just be a good example. This works for us, and but also not to say that we are the best in the world, but still say like this is how we do it. It works for us, and come and work with us, and we can do things together. So I think we can really show a good example of how to be sustainable, how to work together, with different people. So I think that is something that we should definitely take into account, and not be isolated, but we are stronger together. Yeah.
Yep. Páll, a comment?
Yeah, just a little remark. In the Nordic region, we are one of the most sustainable regions in the world, without doubt. And the density of the population is the least in the world, because it's quite cold and northerly we live. So we already are in a position as leaders on that front, no doubt about that. At the same time, we live in and from nature. That's why we're existing here in this part of the world. I think it's right to try to be front runner in this heavy task, as it is, as I see it. It is a really heavy task, not only to move within our own borders, but trying to be front runners and getting the others running along with us. But I think highlighting the subject like we do today, and in all the good job done by experts and administrations, I think it is a right direction we're moving in.
Andrea, your network, you were delivering a position paper to the Nordic climate ministers containing 19 demands to save biodiversity. Could you tell us a little bit about those demands, also based on what Hafdís and Páll were saying?
Yes. It's our position paper that we gave to all the Nordic climate ministries, and it's based on a survey that we did where Nordic youth were in a survey, I think about 3,000 participants. And so I'm not going to list all 19, but they included, for example, that we wish for better youth inclusion and also marginalized groups inclusion. We also want better education on biodiversity. I think that a lot of people are educated on climate change, which is very good, but I think sometimes maybe biodiversity education is lacking a little bit. And one of the key things is also that we want the Nordic countries to face up to our ecological footprint. So you said that we were the most sustainable regions in the world, which I don't know if I completely agree, because our consumption is very high. So we have, like, if you just calculate for our consumption here, it might look very good and bright, but the Nordic countries have like one of the largest ecological footprints in the world. So I think we have to like consider reducing that also. So those are some of the demands, and yeah, we're trying to get the message out and trying to get the ministers to.
What is, in your opinion, the difference between the message from the youth and the message from other older people discussing these subjects?
The difference between?
Yeah. How do you think the youth do they have different values that come true?
At least, I don't know. Depends on who you're talking to, but I think maybe they want more action quicker, and they have a larger sense of urgency, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be a big difference. But I'm not saying that the older generation does not understand the sense of urgency. That's
yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking that I think there is a challenge in generally just in the world. For example, in Iceland we have a 4-year term, in the politics or in the government. So that is a challenge that we, to think long term. Like, for example, Jona was saying in her talk with the blue-green solutions that they are cheaper to maintain. So maybe the start cost is a bit bigger than other solutions, but the maintenance cost. So how can we move towards like a long-term vision? So I think because we need those big changes. So not only from individuals, but more like the big companies, so to make real changes. So I don't have the solution or the answer, but this is something that I'm thinking a lot about. How can we make these big changes in the infrastructure and just in our societies? And,
when you mention big companies, we're kind of back to the subject Páll raised, that big companies usually want to make big money. Is it possible to make a real profit out of going into green solutions, going into nature-based solutions?
Yeah, I think I always have a bit hard, like only thinking about like the money, because there are so many other, companies now have, social responsibility and sustainability, but there is also, like I think I'm saying it correctly, in the COVID pandemic, then there was studies showing that there were companies that were actually more sustainable or thinking, you can save money by being more sustainable, by consuming less, by using, have a recycling thing, thinking about how you're buying things, where you're buying them from, and so on. I think that you can save money by being more environmentally friendly and sustainable. So I think that many companies are going into that direction, and also just showing that they have, they as anybody else need to think about, the bigger picture, not only themselves, but yeah.
Is there a tendency among decision makers to favor I don't remember which one of you were calling them, grey solutions, technical solutions? Leonard, is that your experience that it's easier to choose a grey solution?
Not necessarily easier. We have a Norwegian project called Spare, which is on water in the city, and when we talk to municipalities, it's, for example, quite clear that different parts of the municipalities has very different views on how we should deal with water in the city. It might even be so that laws and regulations hinder the use of nature-based solutions. For example, roads can't be placed or the angle of the road, because, for example, ambulances can't get through if there is water coming down the road in some instances. And also the management cost or maintenance cost is a difficult problem here, because usually that comes out of another pot from the municipality funds than the actual building of a road or building of a nature-based solution. So there's a big part here which I think is about communication and understanding each other, and how we together can build something. If I can say something shortly on the Nordic collaboration, one thing that we didn't discuss so far, which I think is really important. Can you still hear me?
Yes, please do.
Yes, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think, I mean, my first Nordic projects was funded by Nordforsk in the mid-90s. And what we learned then, or I mean, we always knew, is that the Nordic environment is quite similar. So when we're thinking about what kind of solutions we can use and learning from each other, we have a very similar environment, climate, and so on. So it is easier and maybe better to compare Sweden with Norway, or Denmark with Finland, or Greenland with Iceland, and so on, than comparing it to Italy or Greece or another part of Europe. We shouldn't forget that, I think.
Mm-hmm. And would you like to comment on what Andrea was mentioning that the Nordic countries are also very high consumers? How does that add up with being front runner in nature-based solutions?
I think we're all getting more and more urbanized. And what I would like to say in terms of money is that what we see is that urban planners and landscape architects and in those kind of professions, they're really getting interested in nature-based solutions, and that's becoming an important part of how we plan the city. And of course, there's money in there if you're building new buildings or reforming the way the city is planned.
Kolbrún, you were asking for a comment.
Yeah, it was more about the thing that we were talking about, how to. Well, I think that the critical thing here, at least in the Faroe Islands, is that we are not aware of the problem in its essence. I don't think we, as Andrea also mentioned, the lack of education is a huge problem here. We think we are very attached to nature, but we are not aware of the critical state it's in when we're walking and enjoying a hike. And maybe I'm just naive, but I truly hope that if we could be better at communicating the issues and really collaborating on those gaining knowledge from each other, this is a very good initiative to do, we will come a long way in a short amount of time, because I think that keeps on being the barrier. We want to do good, but we don't know where to start.
Mm. Andrea, what did you have in mind when you said that well, it was not only you, it was actually one of your points for the ministers, that we need better education on biodiversity?
So there are multiple demands under that point, but for example, education on, I think one of the points was that we need to be more educated on how indigenous people use their land, for example, because they often live more in harmony with nature than we do. So that could be more education on their processes when it comes to land use and so on, and not to leave a mark and so. But yeah, I think just in general, any knowledge or to truly understand what you are seeing when you're seeing, for example, land degradation, I think would help to actually understand the urgency of the situation.
Mm. Are we talking about teaching school children?
Yeah, for example. Yeah. I think everywhere. Like you can pretty much apply it to anything in schools, or maybe just general campaigns, you know, to get people to really understand what is going on.
Who should do that?
The decision makers. I think they should fund it and do. I would be happy if that.
From the minister, from the top.
Yeah, I think so.
You told your network told the climate ministers of the Nordic countries that this was something they should do. How did they respond?
So the goal of the survey and so on was, or the goal of the whole project is that we should take it with us to the biodiversity COP. So, you know, they have the climate COP, you have the biodiversity one. And that has been postponed for 2 years now because of COVID. But it's kind of hard to say exactly what impacts our position paper has had. I mean, we've done pretty much everything we can to, when there is some meeting before COP or something, we have side events and invite ministers and so on that are present to hear about it. And I think it's also been inspiration for some other youth. I think the Swedish Youth Council used it for their position paper. So, I mean, we're just trying to shed light on it, but I think it's hard to say any concrete impacts. And I think we hope to see more after COP in December, but it's also hard to say what the concrete impacts are when there are not any concrete actions. So you need the actions to actually know if it's made an impact or not. So we hope to see some more.
So how do you feel about that?
How I feel about
not seeing the sense of urgency?
I don't know. Like sometimes I am hopeful, but sometimes I'm not. I think it depends on the day and who I'm talking to. But yeah.
Páll, you said you were an optimist.
I think it's necessary to address the problem to the political system, of course, from the minister and down. But we also need to somehow build the bridge to the landowners, to the farmers, and also to communicate to them the urgency of doing something. Because at the moment, for example, if we take the wetlands in the Faroes today, if we drain them, we can gain more grass, meat, and energy from them. But if they stay in nature, they store greenhouse gases, but there is no direct revenue in it. So we need to also to make the farmers, the landowners, to understand the meaning, the urgency of the problem, not only in the short term, but also in the long term.
Do you think it might be, not that I should make suggestions, but that it might be easier for people to understand the biodiversity problem? That if you drain the wetlands, then certain birds that you like will disappear. And is that easier to grasp and easier to inhibit that sense of urgency than talking about how much CO2 you can store in the wetland?
I don't know.
Kolbrún.
Well, we have a great collaboration with a farmer who remembers seeing birds at this wetland when he was young, and he drained the wetland on his own to make better habitats for the birds, because he thought that they didn't like the wet area, and now he sees the benefits. But we can't put all the decision making on the farmers, because they also need to believe in that they are doing the right thing and they get the necessary support to do it. We can't just like tell them, you should do this, this, and this instead, if they don't get anything out of it.
But should the political system then provide some money from the taxpayers to repay the farmers for rediscovering the wetlands? Or
well, I think
I'm just asking because. Of course, it's an issue. If a farmer that now has lots of grass in his land, and then he needs to go back to the wetlands, then he perhaps only has half of the sheep he had before, or a third of the cows he had before. How do we fix that?
The Faroe Islands, at least, are tiny Our land area is so small that we can't afford to say, well, we need this area, so we have to drain this wetland. We should say that, or I would hope that it would be possible for the farmers who have really undrained wetlands would get subsidies, for example, for keeping them as a natural protected area. Because we're still in that process that we don't have a nature protective area because of nature. We have it because of some conflicts between farmers or other reasons. That's why it became protected, you know. So we are still we need to get, to make everyone understand that nature has a purpose in its own, and that it should be valued as in its own self. So yes, give subsidies to farmers for keeping their land as a natural land.
But still, if you don't produce food on this land, that food has to be produced somewhere else, maybe in another country. So isn't it quite important to address that question in the same discussion?
Yes. But I'm not gonna be a farmer specialist. But as I know that our industry, sheep industry, is not even commercialized. There's a lot of development we need to do in that area, and I believe we can do it together with the protection and conservation of nature. I believe it's possible if we have the necessary protection, nature protection laws, if we have the necessary plans that, okay, if we use this area fully productive, then we have to conserve and protect these wetlands areas as a result. We can't, at least for now, there's no balance in what we're doing. We're just utilizing land without, and there's consequences all over, you know. We don't have any protective areas, or we haven't restored any areas as a consequence.
It's been for 200 years, it's been the main goal for the entire farmer community in the Faroe Islands to grow and cultivate and grow and cultivate and grow and cultivate and drain. So now it's a different story.
It has been their pride, not to. Hafdís, Hanna?
Yeah, in the case in Iceland with the wetlands is that like back in the around the 1940s, 1950s when, and I know that also because part of my family are farmers. There were so many, the wetlands were drained to such a big extent. So because the farmers got money, or it was subsidized to drain the wetlands, so they drained much more than was needed. They didn't need it all for haymaking or etc. So now we have there are so big areas that can be restored that are not used even as in agriculture. So that is maybe something different from the Faroe Islands, but so it's so I think it would be, we need some kind of incentives for the farmers to either keep in relation to biodiversity, that they I remember when I was living in Switzerland, I think some of the farmers got some subsidies if a certain number of plants were found in their area or something, with biodiversity, or by restoring the wetlands. We have to be proactive in that.
So somebody on a higher level, some decision makers have to put an interest into this and say that we will pay you to protect these kind of plants, or to not to utilize
at least
land.
to look into that, how best to do it. But and also with what I wanted to mention with education, I remember when I was studying in my first year in biology at the University of Iceland, when I took a course on land degradation, or I learned something about land degradation, and I don't know if it's good or bad, but at least I got to learn to read the land much better. So instead of seeing a beautiful landscape, I was seeing, oh my God, it's I can't look at it, because it's so degraded. But that is just like if you learn, if an artist who has studied art goes into an art gallery, they understand, in different way than when I go there as a hobby, just to look at it. So if we learn, and we go in and we learn to read the nature of the land, we see the condition, and I think then we appreciate much more a healthy ecosystem. So yeah, both then for young people and for So maybe we should take the politicians to, areas to learn about wetlands and land
and train them in reading the land. Yes. Yeah. Leonard, you had a comment first, and then Kolbrún.
Yes. I think it's very important, the last part we heard. We have some projects where we're looking at what the land looked like, in this case rivers, the Gausa River in Norway, what it looked like in the 50s before it was changed, and then it was changed for timber floating. And now the river looks very different, and we did some quantifications of what that difference looks like in terms of less water, quality of the near stream tree zone and so on. But people really think that what they see today is the natural situation. And what we in Swedish call mannaminne, so the collective memory of what has happened in the past. I think it's really important here because I think especially in the Nordic countries, we really do believe that the nature that we see is natural, whereas in many, many cases it has been altered by humans. And now we try to alter it back. And that's also something we learned. People usually don't like change. So what they see now is the status quo, the nice situation. And then you come and say, oh, we should restore it, we should change it to something. And then they get afraid because they don't know what that change will infer for them. So I think that's also an important part in this, as we heard, understanding what has happened, what we have done, and what will happen, the positive things that could happen if we restore it or conserve it or change it back.
Kolbrún?
Yeah, we have the same aspects in the Faroe Islands, since there have been sheep as long as there have been people on the islands. We are accustomed to the nature that we see all around us. So that's also why we don't even think about asking the critical questions. But I was just thinking about the discussion we had before, that in essence, we can't even afford to drain any more wetlands if we really consider climate change as that global threat that it is. So I know it's so easy to say all these things that in theory we should just stop it right now because we can't afford more carbon emissions than we are already doing. So even though we want the best for farmers and we want the best for the productivity, we really need to go into a system change to really consider how do we face this threat, and then we work from there. Because we can't afford these smaller discussions about, okay, but who gets what and what do we do with this, and we need to scale up. Yeah. Do
you have any thoughts on how do we scale up? And this question is for all of you.
Nordic collaboration? No. Well, no. I mean, I have a few ideas, but I mean, that's a longer discussion.
Andrea?
We've in the position paper, one of the points was to redefine well-being. So when you look at in school, you always learn about GDP, and that's how you define how rich a country is, how well the people are doing there. But I think there is a small movement, at least, to stop using that index and start using happiness index instead. Where I think you'd take, obviously, economy is a part of it, but you also take into account how happy we're feeling, how easy it is to have access to a healthcare system, and the nature around us as well. So stuff like that, normalizing that instead of using how much money per capita, for example. That could be one thing to scale up.
Hanna?
Yeah, I think about scaling up. For example, we are just starting now a project at the Institute for Sustainability Studies. It's an international project that is in collaboration with IUCN and other partners. So we are a part of that project. And that project is exactly about, the lessons learned on how to scale up nature-based solutions. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at, because we have this over 100 years experience in Iceland of restoring degraded lands. So, and we have quite many large-scale restoration projects, but of different sizes and different ecosystem, like some are wetlands, some are woodlands, some are heathland, etc. So we're going to look at those ecosystems and learn about, take the lessons learned. What are the failures? We also have to talk about the failures, because we've done a lot of failures, and what can we learn from them? What are the successes? How did we work with the stakeholders? And was there any challenges there? Because it's so much human aspect as well. How well do we work with the stakeholders and the farmers and the different stakeholders? So hopefully, with some kind of project like this, when taking the lessons learned, we can learn. Okay, this is the best practice, or what we learned from all of these different projects. How can we then scale up project? What are the lessons learned that can help us to then scale it up? And what are also, by comparing, are they only site-specific to Iceland, or is this something that we can take to, other countries can also learn from? So that is just, learn from the successes and failures of already existing or projects that have been.
In the introduction to this event, we were talking about this definition of nature-based solutions that also says that these are solutions to problems, to large-scale problems like the climate problem, but that it also has benefits for humans, for well-being and human benefits in general. Is that always possible? Would it not be a nature-based solution if you said this benefits nature as a whole, but not necessarily us?
Yeah, I think the definition is that it should be simultaneously affect both. If we just take an example from Iceland, because I know that best. Back in 1907, we often say that is the starting year of the Soil Conservation Survey in Iceland and the Forestry Service, because in the beginning of the 20th century in Iceland, there was so much erosion and there were so many farms being abandoned, for example, in South Iceland, because of sand, because the farmland was just full of sand, and so the farmers needed to go away. And that was the reason why, okay, we need to restore the land to both for agriculture, but also just so people could live there, air quality. And I think that we just have to, these nature-based solutions, I think in nearly all cases, they are also good for other life, like human well-being. We just have to, we don't see sometimes the links, but the links are there. So we just have to recognize them, that they are, it's air quality or, physical or human health, or, there's so many different things that can be. So I think in general, just by helping the nature, helping the climate, or restoring nature, we are saving ourselves. That is just, how it is.
But do you have any ideas on how to scale up from this NGO corner and make these solutions real solutions that most politicians would?
We need to address the legislative body or the administration on this issue, because largely I think the political system is not aware at the level like the scientists are. So that's one thing to do. Another thing I would like to add is to get some practical, concrete versions of models or systems, ideas, solutions to nature-based solutions on a very practical level. Mapping every thinkable opportunity for doing that would help somehow generating a will amongst just normal people. So it's not just a phenomena we're thinking about or academia is taking care of, but which is in the daily life of every citizen.
And maybe the grass roof was the best example of exactly that. That if you know that your possibilities are the grass roof or this aluminum or whatever roof, then it's possible to make a choice. Andrea?
Vel en annen utgave av det.
Yeah, heating from thermal heat from the ground. Yes, it's also something that if people know about it, then they have the possibility to choose it. Andrea, did you have anything to add on this upscaling point?
No, I agree that it's something we have to, like as you said, like a legislative level, probably start from there, and then also education of the people in power, I think would maybe make the process faster, I hope. But no, I don't really have that much to add.
Our time is beginning to run out, so do you have any points that you would like to end with? Then the moment should be now.
Yeah, I can just start. Something that is, I think a lot about is that we are sometimes in those boxes. We are in the climate box, or we are in the biodiversity box, or we are in like all these different boxes. But how can we break the barriers? How can we work together on? Because sometimes we have solutions, like nature-based solutions. Let's say that, and maybe they're not, the definitions would then not be nature-based solutions. But we have climate solutions, let's say, that are good maybe for the climate, because we are planting, for example, species that are sequestering carbon or nitrogen fixer or something. But maybe they are, not, maybe they become invasive. We have to, and then we are losing biodiversity. We have those, we have examples of this in Iceland, for example, and I guess, in so many countries in the world. So we have to think long-term, again, thinking about the long-term solutions, that we are both working with the climate, but simultaneously like restoring nature or thinking about biodiversity and people's health, so that we are not that they move, work against each other, but together. So I sometimes find, so I hope we are moving in that direction, that we think holistically about these issues. So that is my final, words.
Leonard, do you have any concluding comment?
I think also it's really important that we don't forget the biodiversity crisis and only think about climate change. I mean, being a freshwater ecologist, the last WWF report said that 1/3 of all freshwater species or species connected to freshwater is threatened with extinction. And anything you can't see, which is under the surface, is quite difficult to grasp for people. So I think we can't move forward with the nature-based solutions concept only thinking about climate change. We have to think about biodiversity as well.
Andrea, I guess you agree on that.
Yeah, yes, I do. I don't know what to say. I mean, we have to remember that this is not a simple problem with a simple solution. And I think it's really nice to see the nominees today, and also the project that Jonna mentioned. It's very inspiring. But although I think we are still lacking, maybe on the decision maker scale, some larger, solutions or more action there, I would say. So not all negative, but also very positive.
Páll?
Yeah, perhaps it's a change of paradigm. I think we're up against some very well-known factors for many, many years when it comes to economic growth and how we somehow stimulate the welfare situation in our region or in the world. So we really need to think out of the boxes to somehow find another way of thinking growth and welfare in the future.
And Kolbrún?
Well, I agree with all of you. Well, in my field, I'm working still on trying how to tackle all of these things at once. But I think we are fast learners, and since we're such a small community in the Faroes, I also, as Andrea says, I hope try to be optimistic in the process, even though there are a lot of challenges all the time. But we raise awareness, and people catch on pretty soon, I think. And I hope that that can also create a chain reaction in some kind of way, a positive chain reaction for once.
Well, thank you, all 5 of you, for enlightening me and the other people here and the other people who are with us on live stream. Thank you so much for being with us today. Should we give them a hand? And now we will only have to wait for the 1st of November to see who will get the environmental prize of the Nordic ministries. We will maybe not be there, all of us, but we will all look forward to it. Thank you for today.